My name's Katie. I'm in my third year and I do sociology and social anthropology.
My name is Sharvani. I'm also in my third year and I'm studying natural sciences. I'm just going to talk about how it makes me feel being female at Cambridge and Girton as a whole, and certain things I've learned along my journey, especially from strong female role models I've had in Girton and university. People often used to use adjectives like sunshine or rainbows and unicorn to describe my personality, and I'm usually always told how much I'm smiling. And while I always thought it was sweet, I think there was a part of me inside where this just didn't sit right. And I've been trying to think about like why I feel weird being called excessively happy and smiley all the time. And it's almost like I used to try and defend being called so happy all the time that I sometimes, without even knowing, try and dull myself, just so I felt like I'd be taken more seriously. And over time, I've realized that this is just a lot of like internalized misogyny. And this, I think, connects a lot to the kind of field I'm studying, which is like STEM fields, where women who often make it to the top fit a certain stereotype, whether attire or personality. It's almost like they've had to suppress their femininity to be taken seriously, as though their femininity was some sort of like weakness that they have to like mask. And I think often this term called like girl boss gets thrown a lot, like, oh, she's girl bossing her way through things. And it's really interesting because when I think of girl boss, I think of like this woman in like a blazer suit, like standing in front of this conference room table, in predominantly male-dominated fields. And while I think it is really powerful, this sort of image, I think it comes with promoting this idea that for women to be successful, they have to make other people in the room, such as men, for example, forget that they're women. Of course, it's not true everywhere, but it's just sort of something I've been thinking about in terms of the kind of images I associate with powerful women. And in thinking about all this and relating to how much I love expressing my femininity, I think I'm particularly inspired by successful women who also express their femininity, and two of whom are my supervisors in Cambridge and Girton. I'd like to talk about each of them. So one of my supervisors is one of the smiliest people I know. She's so chatty, she loves to dress up. She's always being so candid and vulnerable around with students, which is not that common with like Cambridge supervisors because they like to maintain an image that like they're, just really put together. And she's just so feminine. And she holds a PhD in molecular biology and is one of the top researchers in her lab. And then my other supervisor rocks up in these really bright and colorful, quirky dresses to work. She's so kind and thoughtful to everyone and is one of the best coders I know. In fact, some of the seniors in her department come to her for coding help because she's just so talented. And these traits like kindness, politeness, excessive smiling or giggling is often associated with femininity. And my female role models have shown me how owning that femininity and being successful doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. And I think on the male side of things, issues like toxic masculinity also stems from the same root of femininity being somewhat equated to weakness. And I think true strength can be resilience and vulnerability, and I don't think either of these need to be gendered. I think like preparing for this talk really got me questioning what femininity means to me, what it can mean to other women and men. I noticed that most of the people I look up to in my life, in Cambridge and Girton, and just in my personal life, tend to be women, and I don't think that's a coincidence. And in specific, a lot of people I look up to are people I follow on social media. So I haven't even met these people in person, and yet somewhere I feel such a deep connect to their core values or what they choose to portray online. I used to binge watch Cambridge bloggers. In particular, there were these two female bloggers called Holly G and Paige Y. I don't know if any of you know them. I'm sure Katie might. But yeah, they were huge at that time, and they used to make lots of videos about their life at Cambridge. They both happened to be studying natural sciences, which is the degree I'm doing right now. And while there were many aspects that were relatable, such as they both were female, there were many aspects that were not relatable to me. Like their accent was very different from mine, their background, their cultural values, just the way they looked was very different to me. And then fast forward many years later, where I found myself exploring my life in Cambridge. And I was actually so stunned at how large the cultural societies are in Cambridge. In particular, the India Society, Hindu Society, and Singapore Society, all of which I'm an active member of. I had no idea they're so huge and so diverse and so thriving in Cambridge. And this links back to something Katie's going to talk about a bit more later. But gender inequality and being female and maybe sometimes feeling inferior being female is also differentiate experience linking to other factors such as your race or your sexuality or any other factor that makes you feel like you're in some sort of minority group. For me, race can be a really powerful thing. For example, I feel really empowered looking at women doing successfully, but particularly empowered when I see women of color doing certain things. And for that reason, I decided to start my own YouTube channel, which is, as far as I know, the first Cambridge blog channel by a vegan, Hindu, female, Indian international student. So it's a lot of minority boxes I think I've sort of fit in without initially realizing I do. And getting into Cambridge is a success story for many people. While it's an incredible achievement, I realized here that not everyone here is academically the most rigorous people you're going to meet. Or they have the same academic passions, and people are so well-rounded, have so many interests, and are good in so many things that are sometimes not just academic. And there's just such a huge diversity in people here that I don't think makes it out of the Cambridge bubble. And this is exactly what I try and portray on my channel, because I don't think I'm the most academically rigorous person I know. There are sometimes I don't even want to stay in research and science, which is a whole other topic, but it's stuff like this that is so normal to me, and I know that is so normal to people around me, that I think it's really important to share to people that Cambridge is not just like certain boxes ticked and everyone in Cambridge is not the same way. And the response to sharing things like this on my YouTube channel and Instagram page has just been so overwhelming. I receive messages all the time ranging from absolute disbelief at how thriving the Indian and Hindu communities in Cambridge to being inspired by these prospective applicants who want to make a Cambridge application because they can see themselves fitting in, because they see me fitting in. And this brings me to kind of think about the role that social media and content creation plays in female and women empowerment, and just empowerment of any minority group that people feel like they might fit into. Is that when you see people you consider successful succeeding, and a part of you relates to a part of them, you can see yourself succeeding. And I think that is so powerful, and it really, like the whole concept of representation in social media, I think the power of them is often overlooked a lot. And yeah, through my journey as a content creator, I've just realized how powerful it is showing just what is normal to me, just looking this way, just speaking the way I speak, just nothing really extraordinary. And that normal is normal to so many other people, but it's perhaps not that normal in social media. Many of our identities are made up of many small parts, and each of these small parts may not be the most unique. But I think it's the whole sum of these small parts that make us unique. The women I follow and look up to are so different in their own ways. Like, they are all women, but that's not all that I see them as, and I see them as much more inspirational than, yes, being female makes them powerful, but so does their other qualities. And I think a lot of female empowerment is realizing that we can't distill people's identity to just one aspect of them, such as gender, which they express themselves. And yeah, I think it's this intersectionality that is so special. And I think it means you can never have too many voices on places like social media, because there's just too much diversity in people to say like, oh, we already have a female blogger, or we already have like an Indian whatever.
I'm a social anthropologist by degree. That's what I'm studying, that's what I'm writing my dissertation in, and part of that means I do a research project where I go out and speak to some incredible people, and the focus for my research has been on studying motherhood for foster parents, which it touches on my own family history. My grandparents did fostering, and my grandma is one of the most inspirational people to me in the whole world, because she just astounds me with how much she has to give to everybody she meets. And for me, when we're talking about women and empowering women and education and what that relates to, I think it's really important that it's not just people who make it into education that we think about, because there are so many people whose voices can be amplified through education. And that's kind of my big takeaway from all this is I'm not looking to be here just to kind of, I guess, shout my own experiences. I want to try and make sure that other people can have their voices heard as well, and that's why I've gone into the degrees that I've gone into, is actually so I can reflect on the insanely cool lived experience of other people and actually make that something that is heard and that is respected.